Working on the brakes on my 2003 Ford Ranger. The brake light came on the dashboard. Brakes are working just fine. I did not know why. I hit the parking brake pedal, bounced it up and down a couple times. That didn't fix it. So I thought, well, maybe I'm low on brake fluid. So I checked the brake fluid. Yes, the brake fluid is low. And before you replace brake fluid or fill it up, you want to make sure your disc brakes are not worn out. Well, I checked my disc brakes. This truck doesn't get used a lot, so there's some rust on the rotors, but there is plenty of pad on the brake shoes. They got pad on both sides. I can't see this side from over here. Got to be back here, but they got plenty of pad in there, and on the left side and the right side we got plenty of pad. I mean, it's not new, but it's about halfway worn down. There's rust on the rotors. When I spin the rotors, it sounded like it was metal to metal, but it's not. It's brake pad to rust on the rotors. I'm not worried about that. And I thought, well, why is my fluid low? I started checking hoses and different things around here, looking for a leak. And let me show you what I found in the back. I started out checking over here on the right rear, and I spin this wheel, and we got just a little bit of a drag on one side. I guess you can hear that. So we got a warped drum over here, which is nothing serious. It's not real bad. Over on this side, don't really hear a warped drum situation, but I started looking for that brake leak. Over here I don't see any signs of leakage. Doesn't mean there isn't any, but I follow my brake lines and brake hoses and everything. Over here I don't see any liquid coming out, but what I do see is paint stripping off of the wheel cylinder. You know, brake fluid will strip paint, right? Maybe we do see some seepage up here. In any case, I'm going to pull this wheel off in this drum, and I'm about 95% sure we got a leaking wheel cylinder up here, but why it's not running out the bottom, I don't know. But that's what we got to have in order for that. Why else would that paint be peeling off of there? Wheel was a little tight coming off on the other side. This side came off pretty good, but I'm still gonna put some spray on here all the way around, and then I'm gonna smack it with that 3 pound, 4 pound, whatever it is, hammer. Smack the drum right along in here. Took me a while to get the brake drum off. I had to destroy it to get it off. It was seized up on there, and we do have a leaking wheel cylinder, and everything's rusted up on the inside, so we gotta could not back the brakes off. This threaded adjusting wheel down here is rusted and seized up. Everything is seized up. I had to use a air chisel on the brake drum. I'll show you where I did that. That's how I finally got it loose. I put heat on it all around here like 2 or 3 times, and it still wasn't popping loose. It was seized in here. It would move and flex, and I could see some play around the studs, but not here. No play there at all. So eventually I came out with the air chisel, and that vibration hammering in here in between each stud all the way around, that eventually got it loose, but it was already too late. I had already busted the drum up, hammering on it and prying on it, and it still wouldn't come off. So I certainly don't want to use drums like that anyway. I'm going to change both the drums, brake shoes, and at least the one wheel cylinder over there. We'll take a look at this one. We might change that one too. Other side was the same way. Had to destroy the drum to get it off. Looks like we're going to be changing the wheel cylinder over here too, so that means I'm going to get brake shoes, wheel cylinders, and hardware kits. I filled up my master cylinder. Actually, I overfilled it, and I dipped a clean paper towel in there to draw a little bit of it out, and because I want to put this cap back on there. If I have a little bit of vacuum, by sealing off the top, closing the lid tight on it, it will help slow down the flow of brake fluid leaking out when I change the wheel cylinders. But then I want the cap loose when I bleed the brakes, so that the fluid will go down quicker and help me bleed it faster, help keep from drawing air back in. My cap was dirty on the inside. I didn't like that. I pulled the rubber out of it and inspect that for cracks. I don't see any. If it's got any cracks or air leaks, it's going to let your fluid absorb moisture, and that'll end up putting rust in the system. So I cleaned the cap out, and I'm putting the rubber back in there, and then I'm going to screw it on there tight so that it'll slow down the gravity of the fluid dropping out of the wheel cylinders, out of the lines when I change the cylinders. These two post lifts have a tendency to loosen up the anchoring bolts on the floor, so it's a good idea to have these jack stands, at least one underneath each end of the vehicle, to tighten up and snug it up, so that when you're wrestling with the car and you get it to shaking and bouncing, you don't have that weight trying to work against those bolts down there on the floor. It's just going to stay pretty much stationary. It's not going to be able to wobble on you. So if you think you might be able to wobble sideways, then you might want to use 4 jacks. Put one on each corner. The main tools I'm going to use is a spring removal and installation tool. This one I bought from Snap-on when I was a mechanic at a shop 40 some odd years ago, 45 years ago, I don't know when it was, back in the early 80s. This, I don't know when I bought that. You can buy these anywhere. That's your little release tool that takes your springs off, your retaining springs off. And I'm pretty sure you can get, it doesn't have to look exactly like these. It's going to work the same. But this one here, let me zoom in a little bit and see. We can, it's also a good idea, get your cell phone out, snap a picture. There's a little hook on this tool. Put that right on top of this, and that hook underneath this. You're gonna, I'm doing this left-handed because that's where the camera is. I'm not left-handed, I'm right-handed. But sometimes doing videos, that's one thing, it takes longer to do videos because you gotta work around things like that. So you just got to remember where all of these parts go. This little pulley thing here, when you put it back together, that goes in that hole there. This cable here, looks like we can still use it, but I'm going to save it. Got those 2 springs off. Now we got to get these down here. I don't know, can we get, is that even in the video? I think it might be. Let me zoom in on that. I'm going to use this, put my finger on the back side because it's like a nail. It's like a nail head back there. Be pretty self-explanatory. Whoops, thing shot out of there. Get the other side like that. There's 2 more springs. There's one on the bottom that holds the 2 bottom shoes together. And you got to make sure you note where the long side of that spring is and the short side. The long side is going to be over here where all of this self-adjusting works is, and the long side of the straight portion of the spring, and the short side is over here. Where's my finger at? Sorry about that. There's a spring inside of this that holds this thing up against that ratcheting wheel, but you don't need to take all of those off from here. All you got to do now is just pull this cable up, unhook it off of there, and then you can pull both sets of shoes right off of there. This bar right here is part of your emergency brake. That will come off and just drop. And just remember that the spring part of it here is towards the front. So I just lifted this up down here, pulled this off of there. Now I'm reaching over the camera, I'm reaching over the table that's holding the light. This is awkward. Pull this apart and then just take this whole thing down. Now the emergency brake thing, is on here. You got to get that off of that brake shoe. But I'm going to try to get this off first. Got that little horseshoe clip on there. Spread that out with a screwdriver and then get that off. After you get that little horseshoe clip off of there, be careful not to lose this little spring washer that's on there. Right now it's just kind of hanging on the groove that's in that pin. Try not to lose that. I don't know if my new hardware kit comes with that or not. It might come with one. And also you can just leave this adjuster ratchet and that spring, leave that in place, and you can just copy so that when you put your new shoes together you can copy and make sure you're putting that on right. Got my wheel cylinder out. My new one out to match it up and see it, make sure it looks the same size, bolt pattern's the same, and these are the same wheel cylinder for both sides. And the way you tell that is that these lines don't come in at an angle, they go straight in. Bleeder valve, of course, goes on top, bolt holes are on top. So it's the same wheel cylinder for both sides. This side is not leaking as of yet. The other side is, but I'm changing it while I'm in here. I'm going to clean all of this off of here. I'm going to take this brake line off and this these bolts, and to keep from losing any fluid, because that's a rigid line, I don't want to pull it out of the way. I can put clamps on it to keep fluid from leaking out of it. I've got clamps for that, but I'm not going to do that because it's a rigid line, and pulling it out of the way is going to make it hard to get the threaded nut lined up with the new wheel cylinder. So I'm just going to break everything loose. I'm going to clean it all off as much as I can out here before I take all of this off of there. I said no sign of leakage. Look here, I pulled those rods out of there. We got this one leaking over here on this side. So it was not blown out yet, but it was, if I only changed the other side, I'd be doing this one before too long. Well, on the back side here, I'm going to hit that with a little shot of spray. And I'm going to go do it on the other side too, since I'm going to do that one later. Going to be using a 7/16 line wrench, or flare nut wrench, or sometimes called. Most mechanics just call it a line wrench. And so I'm going to use that to break loose the brake line, and then the wheel cylinder nuts turn out to be a 1/2 inch. I did break this loose with the line wrench, and I snugged it back up to keep it from leaking fluid. And now I'm going to take these nuts, or these bolts, off of here, and then now that I know this is loose, it'll come right back off again once these bolts are out. And it's going to drip fluid, so if you don't want it to be cleaning fluid up off your floor, put a pan or something down there. Got that all loosened up. The bolts are off. The flare nut for the brake line is off. Got my rag here. Got my drain. Well, okay, I got an advantage. I got a lift, so I got this thing here. And it's windy today, so if I didn't have that, it'd never hit the pan on the floor. It'd be spraying all over the place. The rest of it's self-explanatory. Stick a screwdriver in behind this, or tap it with a hammer or whatever, pop that off of there, put the other one on. Got my bolts right here. I can't, I only got two hands, so I'll need a third hand to hold the camera, so you'll figure it out. Now before I put those bolts in on this thing, I started I threaded that brake line in there first, because the brake line's rigid. Sometimes it's hard to get it threaded in. So you see it dripping, I'm going to go ahead and tighten it up. I was able to just wiggle this thing around and hand tighten that screw, or that flare nut, until it's seated. And so now, because I'm going to have limited room to be turning that flare nut wrench on it once it's in place like this. And once I got it seated, I was still able to flex this a little bit, got my bolts in there, and I can go ahead and tighten those down with the ratchet. There's plenty of room for that. I'm going to do that and then tighten down this flare nut. Well, this came down pretty quick. This all went together pretty quick. We didn't lose hardly any fluid out of here because I got the cap on the master cylinder tight. I'm going to go up there on a ladder and then loosen up that cap so I can bleed this out right here. We'll open this valve up here as soon as I go up there and bleed this and loosen up that cap. Got my 10mm bleeder wrench on here. Of course, you can just use a 6-point socket. Loosen this up, and we're just going to wait until gravity bleeds it out, and that will that'll be good for the moment. Now, this cylinder is in here slightly at an angle, so it's possible, I hope not, but it's possible that a bubble could hang out up here on this end, which is sitting a little bit higher than the back end. I hope that's not going to be the case. If it is, then we'll have to pressure bleed it later. If that's the case, we'll do that on the ground because I can't do that up in the air. So I think this video is going to be just on changing the wheel cylinder, otherwise it's going to be getting too long. The brake shoe video, I think we'll just do that separate. Should only take about 30 seconds or so before fluid starts running out of this. There it goes, it's coming out now. So let me go on ahead and tighten this back down, and that is gravity bleeding, which a lot of times is all you need. And never tighten these down too tight, or they can break off trying to get them out of there, or trying to get them loose the next time, because that's hollow. It's not near as much metal as it looks like.